Okay, so what we looked at, or what you should have looked at yesterday, we've been looking at like when we have, say, a loan and we're gaining interest on the loan because the banks are charging, and then we're paying them back. And then we had another scenario in 8A where we had investments and we were getting some interest, but we were also adding additional money to it. So what we're going to do, 8C, is doing amortisation tables. And what they are, it's like a bank statement is an amortisation table. So we're going to start, you see the way, how the bank flow is going and the balance, and it's all put into a table. And so you can do it you can have an amortisation table for different things. You can have it for a loan. So you'll see that, or you could have it for an annuity, which is when you invest money. And you would have seen yesterday as well, an annuity can be an investment where you invest money, but then you slowly take payments out because you want to use it. So that's what an annuity is, and we can have a table, an amortisation table for that as well. So we're going to have a look. So what you're going to see is it steps out the process. So when you're, say for example, in this example here, they said Alyssa's loan from example 7. So she borrowed $1,000 and she was charged 15% per annum, and it was paid out and made payments of monthly. So you can see it in the recurrence relation there. So she gets a little bit of interest charged. And so here they've got down, here is like what you'll see in a minute. Here is one row of the amortisation table broken up. So you think about it, you start with your balance. And then what happens every month, in the month, she gets some interest added to that loan. And so if you look in her first scenario, $12.50 of interest was charged onto her loan. But she's going to make a payment of $250. So if you think about it, that's the payment she's making. She's not making anything else. But if you think about it, the payment first has to pay the interest off. Okay? So she had $12.50 added extra. So she's first got to pay $12 that interest, and then all the rest of her payment will be used to reduce the loan. So what we call that, you'll see it, they call it the principal reduction. Because that means what is the loan actually going down by. And if you look at that, $250 minus $12.50 ends up being $237. So $50. So her loan will only drop down by that, and then we'll go into the next month. So you can see here's the table. So you'll have the payment listed, what number it is. So this is her first payment. So she actually did pay in $250. So you'll often see this column always the same because she is always paying $250, but the interest amount will change. So in this first instance, she got $12.50. So what she's actually dropping her loan by is the payment minus the interest, and that's a reduction. So this balance, then you have your balance. So what the balance was the $1,000 minus that $237.50. Okay, that's how they got that. All right, so we're going to see it written in this table. So constructing an amortisation table for a reducing balance loan. Okay, so remember, a loan is you gain interest and you take away the payments, you make payments. So the interest paid here, so if you want, we don't write it like that. The way we write it is we say R over PPY over 100, and we're going to say times VO. That's how we would work out our interest. They're saying P for principal there. Okay, so, and we say where R is the annual interest rate. So I really should say, in this formula, so we actually say, it's still the actual, that's okay. All right, so we're going to have a look at this. this table, and I'm going to show you how a few things are calculated, and I want you to write around it because this is going to help you in an exam. You'll go, I need this figure. How did they calculate that figure? All right, so if we have a look, so we could write how we get the principal reduction. So like we saw before, we said the payment amount, because in this scenario, she's making a payment every month for $257.85. So the payment amount minus the interest earned on it equals the principal reduction. So that's how we got that. Now, how they got, say here, the 318, this is how much, say this is what we're going to call the interest paid, okay, or the interest that you had to, you got charged for borrowing the money. So the way they work that out is they do the annual rate divided by PPY over 100 times the balance before. So when I mean the balance before, I mean on the table, this is the balance before, the one in the month before, okay? And if you look at it, you can see in this formula, we need that R. So remember that R equals the percentage rate per annum. So sometimes if they haven't given you the jargon beforehand in terms of the scenario, which sometimes they may give you the rate per annum. If they haven't, all they've given me is just the table. But I can calculate the interest rate. So up here, I'm going to just write, because this is where I've got room, I'm going to say finding interest rate. This is how we're going to find the interest rate if we haven't been given it. And what I mean, what's happening here is we're going to say finding the interest rate. I mean the rate per annum divided by PPY. Because whatever happens here, I can't really see if it's monthly or weekly because I can't see the jargon. So I'm just going to go call the finding the rate R over PPY. Okay, so what you can do when you want to find the interest rate, what you can do is, so I'm going to say R over PPY, that's what we're trying to find. It will equal an interest amount divided by a balance before. So you could pick any one that you like. So what I'm going to do is I've chosen to pick this 1250. So I'm going to highlight it in purple so you can see. So that's the interest amount. So that's what I would write here. And sorry, it's times 100. Sorry, beg your pardon. So then I'd go, so the interest amount I'm picking is 1250. And I'm going to divide by the balance before, which would be 1,000. So you could pick any one of the scenarios, you'll still get the same thing. And then you go times 100, and I end up with the rate over PPY. So this means the per annum rate divided by whatever PPY is 1.25%. Okay? Because I can't really see, we're assuming this is probably following on from the girl before, but it's a bit different numbers, so we're not too sure. So I'm not going to go with it. So this is the per annum rate divided by PPY. Say it was monthly. How would I find just the per annum rate, which is just the R by itself? If I said this scenario was monthly, what would I do? Yeah, we'd times it by 12 because we'd know this, we would be dividing it, so you could times that number by 12 to get the per annum rate. What about if I said it was quarterly? What are they dividing there to get that quarterly rate? They're dividing by what? 4, so I could times that by 4. So that's just to help you. But in the table, in an amortisation table, they're using this rate every time. So what you're seeing is that then they times this by, say, 1.25%, and they end up with $9.43, okay? So that's how it's working. So we can now, because we know that rate over PPY, I can show you how this interest, this 318 was calculated. We know it was, we know that rate over PPY was 1.25, and I could divide it by 100, and I times it by the balance before, which was 254.71, and that's how I got $3.18. Okay? Okay, so Flora wants to borrows 20,000 in an interest rate of 8% per annum compounding annually. So this was my VO, this was the rate per annum, and PPY, because it's just happening annually, is 1. She makes an annual payment of $2,500, so they're her payments. So you can see down here they've just got the first line of amortisation table, and you can see they're putting that payment in there. So you're going to get a few questions just asked off to see whether you can understand what's going on. So the first one was, state the principal of the loan. What does principal mean? The big, yeah, so what was that? The initial amount was 20,000. Okay, then in B, it's asking us to calculate the initial interest charge on the principal. So we know that, and we're going to get used to this. So the interest amount or interest paid, the way we're going to do it would be the rate divided by PPY over 100 times the balance before. Now they're saying the initial one, so the balance before would be the beginning amount. So I've got 8, because it was 8% per annum, over 1 over 100 times the 20,000. So I end up with the interest paid is 1,600. Okay, so she's paid that. Then it says with C, it says, C, determine the impact, the first annual payment to find the principal reduction. So what that means is, how much is the loan actually going down by? So they're really asking, what is the principal reduction? So principal reduction is what your payment was, which was $2,500, minus your interest, because your loan's only going to drop by whatever was left over. And so in the end, that's $900. So we've worked out a few things here. We've worked out this is $1,600, and we can see that the principal reduction is $900. So for her loan, even though she borrowed $20,000 every year, she has to pay, the interest on that loan was $1,600. So even though she's making, at the end of the year, she made a $2,500 payment, she hasn't reduced it by that much, because she's got to pay the interest first. And so she's only reduced that loan by $900. So in D, it is criminal, and that's why you try not to borrow money as much as possible. So in D, it says, what is the new balance? So the new balance is always, you do the balance before minus the principal reduction. So in this case, it was, she started off with 20,000, and she's only managed to reduce it by 900. So we've got 19,100. So that's the new balance. So there we go. So it is very common for even though you're making these big payments, your principal reduction, by the time you've paid the interest, is not a lot. So don't think you're getting it wrong. This is what happens, and this is what happens in life. And that's why you think why home loans take forever, and that's why they're like 30 years, the loans are extended for 30 years and things, because it just takes so long for people to pay off because of the interest rates. And that's why people are all upset, because when the interest rates go up, even though they've only budgeted for that payment, it means they're not reducing their loan as much as well. Okay? All right, so let's have a look. Flora borrows $20,000 at an interest rate of 8% per annum. So we're still going on with the same thing. So this is still VO. This is still the rate. PPY is still 1. And she makes an annual payment of $2,500. So now we're going to construct our whole amortisation table using this. So remember, payment 1, we know she's always going to make that. And you can see that because she's not going to ever change her payment unless they tell you. So we can fill those 3 in like that. Now we know we worked out the first one to be $1,600. This is still the same scenario. So we know principal reduction is always the payment minus the interest. So we end up with $900 and we had the balance. So there was our first one. All right. So then what you would do is you could take, the rate. Remember we said the rate over 1 over 100 times, so this is how we work out interest, is we do the rate over 100 times the balance. Can I just write the word B and 4? That means the balance before. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit lazy here. So it'd be 8 over 1. And so if I was doing this next one here, that's what I'd be doing. 8 over 1 over 100 times the balance before, which would be, say, 19,100. And that's how I end up with 1528.00. You will get less interest you have to pay because you did reduce your loan a little bit. Okay, so you should see that going down. So then if I do the principal reduction, so this time if I do the 2,000, she's reducing her loan by 972. So we get, if you do that, so if you do the balance before minus what it got down to was 128, and then I'm going to do the interest on this last one. So I've calculated. In a minute, I'm going to write underneath how I got those numbers so that you've got a little example. So it's the same as what we just did, but just so you've got it in your notes. Now, I'm actually be really careful. I should really write 0.00 when there's no sense. And I'm just telling you that because often the tables have all of that. And they'll be a little bit picky in the SAC. So make sure if it's 0 cents, we still want to see a 0.00. You'll cover yourself and there will be no argument if we do that. So let's just have a little look at how I calculated that. So how I calculated this one. So remember, interest amount or interest paid is the rate over PPY over 100 times balance before. So I did the 8 over 1 over 100 times 18128, and that's how I got the 1450.24. Just so you can see that's how we did that one, and just so you can remember how we're getting the balance. So the balance before minus the principal reduction, that's how we found that one. So in this scenario, it was 18128 minus the 1049.76. Sorry. And that's how I got the 17078.24. Okay, so this is a table. So you could quickly, if you're at the beginning of the loan, which we are, you could quickly do it recursively. So remember how we say we do 20,000 and then we times it by this rate, yeah, and minus the payment. So you could see that could show you your balance in your loans at the moment. But the thing is, we might not always be at the start of our amortisation table. We might be 10 years into a 20-year loan of a monthly payments. So we do need to know how we get them because we'll just random. All right, let's go to this next one. So a business borrows $10,000 at a rate of 8% per annum. So VO, here's my beginning, here's my rate, and it says compounding quarterly, so PPY is 4. We will be moving into Financial Solver, and writing those things above it is very important because you use those things in there as well. So the loan is to be repaid using quarterly payments of $2,700. So can I just say too, just to remind you, interest charged will be the same periods as your payments. So what I mean by they're charging interest quarterly, payments will be quarterly. That is just how your year 12, they work it. They said they won't mix it up, they match it. But that might not be real life, but for you guys, ours will always match, okay? Because we're just learning how it all works. All right, so here they've got a few things here, and they've said, it says calculate the first one. So we've got an amortisation table, and A says to calculate the interest paid on the initial balance. So they're asking me, because this is the initial balance. That's the initial balance if you're a bit unsure. Initial means beginning. So that's initial balance. So they're asking me to find that one. So if I go and work out, remember, so we want an interest amount. So interest amount, the way we're going to find that, remember, the rate per annum over PPY over 1 times the balance before. So when we're doing the original one, the balance is the original amount. So if we look here, we get, I could say it's 8 over 4 this time over 100 times the balance, which was 10,000 in the beginning, and I end up with $200. So can you see too, all of their numbers have 0.00. Sorry, I'm not going to have enough room there, so I'm just going to type it. There it is. I should put 0.00 in there. You can see they've done it, so we'll do it. Okay. Sorry, someone said I didn't put the 100 there. Awesome. Okay, so B, it says calculate the principal reduction from the second payment. So what they're talking about there is this guy here. Now, we can just use what they've done. They've already calculated the interest. So remember, principal reduction is the payment minus the interest earned. So because this is our notes, I'm going to write it out for us. So principal reduction equals payment minus interest interest amount or earn. I'll just say amount. Okay, so we end. Oops, sorry. Please. Sorry. So I get. Oh, I did it again. Sorry, it's hitting it. So minus interest amount. So I've got the payment was 2,700 minus 150 interest in this case. So the principal reduction. So the loan is dropping by that amount in the second payment. So I'll write 2550.00 in there. Okay, and then the last one, C, it says they're just getting us to practice that the balance here. So remember, the balance is found by doing the balance before minus the principal reduction. So balance of loan equals balance before minus principal reduction. So that's actually what we're reducing it by. So in this case, the balance before was 4950 minus the principal reduction, which was 2601. So we end up with 2349. So I will just 2349, sorry, 0.00. I don't fit it in. Okay, so consider the following amortisation table for the annuity after 3 monthly payments. So they've told me here that PPY must be 12. Okay, so that's a good little indication. They might not exactly say it's compounding monthly, but if this is a statement of monthly things, that means it must be going on the month. Okay, so we're going to go through these questions. Sorry, I'm just going to make that a bit smaller so I have more room. Okay, so the first one is A. So it says state the principal of the annuity and the amount of interest paid in the first month. So you're just reading that off. So can you work out? So they're just checking that you understand what an amortisation table is showing you. So where is the principal? Yeah, the top right. So they're saying that's the principal, isn't it? That's our original amount when nothing else has happened. So you just write that out, that it's 12,000. Okay. In the next bit, now be careful. I find a lot of kids don't answer some of the second parts when questions are written like this, and you're only going to get 1 mark, and it's not that hard. What's the amount of interest in the first month? 60. Yeah, so the amount of interest equals 60. Good. $60. So then if we go for B, now B is asking you to calculate the monthly interest rate. So if you think about it, we would find the monthly interest rate by being R over PPY. Yeah? Is that true? You take the per annum rate and you divide it by, and what would we divide it by? We divide it by 12 or whatever. So what I'm going to say is, but remember when they're calculating this interest, they are taking into account, they are dividing that. So what they're actually doing, you can have a look at it. If you do R over PPY, if you want to find that, because that would be the monthly rate, you could take an interest amount that they gave you and you could divide it by a balance before. Okay, and times it by 100, and that's going to tell you the monthly rate, or whatever rate they're talking about. Because this is monthly, it's monthly. So I'm going to take an interest amount of 60, and I'm going to divide it by a balance before, which was 12,000, and I'm going to times it by 100, so I end up with 0.5%. So that, because this thing is a monthly statement, that is a monthly rate. That's the monthly rate. If I times it by 12, I'd have the per annum rate. Okay, so, and we just might write that. So this is the monthly rate, and I'm just like going to put it in as a side note in case you were like, well, that's just telling me the monthly rate. How did I find the per annum rate? So just underneath, we might just write, so the per annum, if I was finding the per annum, I would do the monthly rate times 12, wouldn't I? Yeah? So in this case, it would be 0.5% times 12. So the per annum rate is 6%, which is what banks will quote. They won't quote the monthly rate. Everyone just talks in a general. They'll say this is a 6% per annum loan, and they're paying it monthly. Okay? So that's that one. So then C is find the values of A and B. So you can see A is interest, yeah? And B, up here, A is interest and P is the principal reduction. So we're just going to, off we go. So we know that interest amount, I'm going to start abbreviating now. Interest amount, which they're calling A in this example, is you do the rate over the PPY over 100 times the balance before. So in this case, it would be, you could have just done 0.5 over 100 because you know that's the month like that. What? Because that bit is that. So the rate, so I'm doing 0.5 times the balance before, which was the balance before of A was 7,709.30, and I end up with an interest amount of 38.55. So you go up here, right, and you type that in, 38.55, and have a look at the trend of what's going on. That interest rate is reducing, the interest amount is reducing. So does that look okay? We've gone to 49 to 38. That looks okay, yeah? So that's a way to pick up with your getting an error. Now I'm just going to change this B, finding B, to my black colour because I'm running out of room here. So B is the principal reduction. Okay, so they're calling that B in this example. And principal reduction is payment minus interest amount, which you just worked out. So I'm going to do the payment of 2,200 minus the interest, which was 38.55. So I end up with a 2161.45 is my B. The other way you could have found out what B is, because B, I'll just highlight it and I'll do that there. So because B could also, because it's how much it's reduced by, you could also find this by doing the balance before minus the current balance. Does that make sense? Because, well, how much did it drop by is the reduction. So you could have said 7709.30 minus 5547.85, and that should have told you, and you'll get the same number, which was 2161.45. So these two are two ways you could do that. Depends what you're looking at and how you're seeing it. Okay, so with this example, this one is an example of an annuity, so which is an investment earning compound interest, but where you take out payments. So you're using your investment and getting like an income from it on a regular basis. So the amortisation table for this scenario is exactly the same as a reducing balance loan amortisation table. So I've popped in some working out there for you, so you can just copy this one down. And just to take note, the last question down here, question D, it starts talking about a perpetuity, which is something we're going to learn later on. But you could just copy down the notes here so that we have a copy in our notes. So an amortisation for compound interest investment with additions to the principal. So just so you know, if you were writing a recurrence formula for this, it will be this R times VN, and because you're adding additionals, that means it would be plus D, yeah? So, and then this is still that R up there is still compound interest. So you're earning interest, but then you're adding more to it. So this amortisation table is going to look a little different. So when you look at it, this is their money, and they've decided, let's have a look. So they've said this is a monthly, so I know PPY is 12. So what they're doing is they've got here's their principal. They invested $1,200 into their bank. They're going to get interest on that. The bank's going to give them. So, but they're also going to add 50 of their own money. So they add this 50. The bank gives them $3 interest. So what is their investment actually going up by? You can see it's going to be their 50 plus the $3 interest because it's extra. So you can see it's getting bigger. And then when the bank calculates their new interest, of course they've got more money in their bank, so we see more money there, we see more interest being added. But you can see how That's that. So we're calling it principal increase because our investment's getting bigger. So here it says complete the 2 additional lines for the corresponding payment 4 and payment 5. So what we're going to do is obviously payment number, that's easy, 4 and 5, and she's always adding in the 50. Okay, and so now, need a bit more room. Now we're going to go find out, first of all, I'm going to find out this one. I need to find out the interest amount for payment 4. So, interest amount, it's still the same thing, like in terms of, I do the rate over the PPY over 100 times the balance before. Okay, so the rate was, well, I don't have the rate. So now I'm caught in a problem that I need to find out what the rate is. So I'm trying to find out what's going on here. And I do know what PPY is, don't I? What was PPY? 12. Yeah, 12 over 100. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say I need to find interest rate. So I'm going to do that now. Okay? So the interest rate, you can use the same formula in terms of interest amount must have equaled the interest must have equaled the rate over PPY over 100 times the balance before. So what I'm going to do is use another scenario. So I'm going to use, say, up here, I'm going to use that interest and that balance before. So I know the interest was $3, and you could say, and I'm trying to find out, I knew that it was 12 and over 100 and times the balance before. Oh shit, sorry, too many. And then you can just do solve if you like. And we can work out what R equals. Okay, so now we know that the rate was 3%. I could pop that down in here because I'm trying to now find I'm trying to find month 4. So I've got 3% divided by 12 times the balance before. So the balance before for the 4th payment was this, 1359.40. So I end up with $3.40. Now, does that look good for that one? It does, doesn't it? Yeah? So then, remember the principal increase was the 2 added together. And then this final balance would be the balance before, plus our principal increase. Okay, so we end up with 1412.80. So that was balance before plus principal increase. Okay, and then now I want to find the interest of this one. I'm going to do that the same thing. I'm going to go interest amount. I can go straight to 3 over 12 over 100 times the balance before, which was 1412.80. And I end up with $3.53. And this looks good. It's going up, which is what I would expect. So 53.53. And then this one, if you add them up, you end up with 1466.33. Okay.